Former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin is expected to be sentenced over the murder of George Floyd this afternoon. This comes after a jury convicted him 2 months ago. Prosecutors are pushing for 30 years in prison, while Chauvin's defense team wants a more lenient sentence. Minnesota's guidelines recommend at least 12 and a half years in prison. So Jamie Yuccas has been covering this case, and she joins me now from Minneapolis. Jamie, what can we expect to see in the courtroom today, and how does this sentencing process work?
Well, it's very complicated, and we don't have a clear outline of how things are going to roll out throughout the day. Many people we've talked to in the legal community have said it could last anywhere from 30 minutes up to 3 hours today, and that's because there will be victim impact statements likely read by the Floyd family. But we've also seen the Attorney General put on his website last week asking for city, state, the country and the world to give their impact statement. We don't know if those will be read, if they'll just be submitted to the court, how those will play out, and how long those will take. It's an unusual move and something people are talking about here as being unusual, so we'll see how that plays into things. We also know that Derek Chauvin has the opportunity to openly state his remorse if he'd like to in court, address the courtroom. When we talked to CBS legal expert Ricky Kleeman about that, she said that she would advise him to speak to the courtroom and say that he is remorseful, but that it should be a carefully crafted statement by his attorney where he does not admit any guilt. That's because they've already said that they will appeal this case, and if he admits guilt while speaking in front of the court, that can impact appeal. Many have also shown and stated that Derek Chauvin has not addressed the court in any manner and has remained pretty stone-cold faced through this whole thing. He did have a mask over much of the proceedings, but that he had that look where he was somewhat just glossed over in his eyes as he was being handcuffed and taken away from court. Not a lot of emotion. So many people saying there really wouldn't be any reason for him to speak in front of the court at this point in time. If he were to speak in front of the court as well, it likely won't impact the judge's decision on what that sentencing will be. That's because Judge Cahill has had months to go over the testimony and evidence of this case and make a decision on the sentencing. Now, again, one of the complications when it comes to sentencing, as you were describing, is that it can be a maximum up to 40 years in prison under the Minnesota state guidelines. That is highly unlikely to happen because the maximum sentence is rarely ever given out in cases like this, especially with a defendant who has no known criminal history and, as his defense team has argued, could be hurt in prison and also has a support system outside within the community, and that he was somebody that had good withstanding in certain parts of the community. So he faces anywhere from, his defense team wants probation at this point with time served up to the judge being able to look at 40 years in prison. The Minnesota state guidelines on average for someone without a criminal history is that 12 and a half years you stated. But again, Anne-Marie, there's another complicated factor here. There are aggravating factors that the judge can take into account. And last month, prosecutors put in 5 aggravating factors that they thought could play into the sentencing guidelines. The judge approved 4 of them and said that it did meet 4 criteria, one of which that Chauvin abused a position of trust and authority as an officer, that he treated George Floyd with particular cruelty, that children were present. You may remember that Darnella Frazier was just 16 years old when she took that video of George Floyd. There were other children there as well, and that he committed the crime with at least 3 other people present. Now, that would be those 3 other officers involved in the case who have not gone to trial yet. So the judge only has to take into account 1 aggravating factor for the sentence to be increased. That's why when you talk to most legal experts, they believe Chauvin will face anywhere from 20 to 25 years, which is, again, nearly double what that 12 and a half years would be under the sentencing guidelines.
Jamie, that is all really, really good context to sort of give us an idea of what we can expect later on in the afternoon. You know, what's going on in the courtroom, really important. Everyone's going to be watching it. But I'm kind of curious about what's going on the street. You know this area really well. You know the city really well. There's been an ongoing conversation since the death of George Floyd about police reform, about, you know, whether it's, you know, defunding the police or changes that need to be made. What has been happening in the city in regards to policing and police reform?
Well, Anne-Marie, the city's somewhat at a crossroads. Now, since the trial ended, there have been a number of things that have happened. Just behind me is the government center. Well, he will be sentenced today. It's the same building where the trial happened. You may remember during the trial, that building was completely fortified. There was tens of millions of dollars worth of security put up all around the city to try to keep buildings safe after the rioting and the burning down of certain government buildings during those riots right after George Floyd died. The security is no longer there. You may hear a police siren or two downtown Minneapolis this time of day as people are getting up and moving around. But the actual fortification, all that fencing you saw and the barbed wire, that's no longer around the building. So there did seem to be a little bit of a deep breath that happened after the conviction of Derek Chauvin. But some other things have happened in this city. There was a shooting that took place involving officers from the federal level of a man in the uptown area of Minneapolis, where a number of protesters gathered for a few nights, causing some businesses to close, a couple of them permanently, saying that there's just been too big of a spike in crime and that now this happening in that part of the city, they didn't want to be involved in what could happen moving forward. We also in North Minneapolis have a number of community members, about 8, who are suing the city, saying they need more police officers in their neighborhood. The city's police department is down about 25% due to retirements, people saying that they needed a mental health break after the George Floyd incident and the trial itself. So there are not as many officers on the street, and we are at the same time, while there's not necessarily a correlation, but there has been a spike in crime that has occurred in a number of these areas, violent crime like carjackings. There's also been shootings. There's been 3 children killed in the North Minneapolis area of the city. And so a lot of people over there saying we want more police officers back on the street. We need to be able to call the police and have them respond in a timely manner. So you're at this crossroads right now where the city initially talked about defunding the police department and reallocating funds, and now that's really going to be left up to voters in November as to what they want to see happen. But you have many different pockets throughout the city who aren't sure exactly how to move forward. But as we heard from some community members in North Minneapolis, they also see this as an opportunity for the city to kind of set the pace and tone for the rest of the country, because a number of cities across the country are seeing spikes in violent crime this summer.
Yeah, that is so true. Well, you know, the city's on the world stage right now, so it's a good time. A good time to set an example is what I mean. Jamie Yuccas, thank you so much.